What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. The wait is over. Finally, I can say game on tonight. Let's drop the puck. It's a game day edition of WST before the Jets play game number 1 of 82 tonight down in Southern California at the Honda Center against the Anaheim Ducks, with a full roster minus the Jets' number 1 center, Mark Scheifele. But lots of excitement about the game. Cole Perfetti will make his National Hockey League debut tonight for the Winnipeg Jets. We'll get to all of that. Some player moves today by Winnipeg. Take a look at the lines, see what the home team has for the Winnipeg Jets. And we'll also discuss opening night in the National Hockey League and some of the big stories around Canada and the league with David Pagnotta from the fourth period. And then our pal Ted Wyman from the Winnipeg Sun will come in. And before we drop the puck on the season, get his thoughts on the upcoming campaign for the Winnipeg Jets, training camp so far, and how the team looks like going into tonight's game number 1. As always, we can't do this without the incredible support of our sponsors. A big WST thank you to our friends at Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Princess Auto, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Not Auto Corp, Canadian Club Whiskey, and of course our friends over at the 4 Nick and Nikki Dairy Queen locations here in Manitoba, in southern Manitoba, and of course here in Winnipeg, and of course our betting partner Coolbet Canada. 2 games last night, some more this evening, and a big soccer game as well, which I'll certainly touch on. We'll get to the Bombers and more over the course of the next couple hours. Let's get the CTO in here. Remis, what is going on, my friend? You ready to drop the puck and watch some hockey tonight?
I am so ready here, Huss. I'm already starting looking at DraftKings salaries. I know last night was the opener with the 2 games. Great to see Seattle. They're looking great on the ice. I love those jerseys. But I mean, this is the real opener, especially for Jets fans here. I mean, come on, Jets, Ducks. Real exciting stuff. So I'm pretty pumped up here.
Yes, as am I. Did you watch the games last night? Did you get a little taste of the NHL season with just the 2 games last night, or were you saving it for a more thorough experience following our own team tonight at 9 p.m.?
That's a great question. I was actually playing my own hockey, and so I missed the Lightning Penguins. I was shocked, Huss, that the Penguins, and we're like, who? You look at this roster, you're like, who are these guys? And they don't have Gensel, they don't have Crosby, they don't have Malkin. And you figure Tampa on home ice celebrating the cup win from last year.
What a dud they had.
Yeah, and lay an egg. It's the pregame ceremony, Huss. I think we've had that theory where you have a long pregame ceremony. There's big egg being laid. But I did tune in. I will say this. I was watching a bit of the Knights Seattle Kraken game. That's going to take some time to get used to saying. But their Kraken's first goal, I don't know, it was just me. I was like, is that not the same first goal that Nick Antropov scored for the Jets?
That's not the exact same thing.
I was like, am I the only one thinking this? Okay, I'm glad I'm not.
That is so funny.
I was like, is the same goal? What? A shot from the point, guy in front, like falling over, bangs in a rebound after the team's getting like dominated too.
And you know what? I'm not sure exactly. Like, I'll have to remember. Maybe someone wants to check the score sheet as to what the score in the game was in Montreal, Winnipeg when Antropov scored. The Jets were definitely down. I can't remember whether it was 2-0 or 3-0. But that is hilarious. You mentioned that. We did not talk about this off air beforehand. I thought the exact same thing. What a memorable goal. And of course, Ryan Donato got in. I will say this. I think you can't help but kind of be a fan. I think there'll be a lot of people that, will really enjoy Kraken games. I can't wait to see what their Climate Pledge Arena looks like and what that home crowd is going to be when they actually get home and do it. But, the nature of expansion teams where you have players from pretty much every NHL team, I think has a bit of a connection for fans of other clubs to that team. And I'm sure, let us know in the comments. I was sitting there pulling for Mason Appleton last night, really excited about what he's going to be able to do with probably some real significant opportunity for Dave Haxtell and the expansion team. And of course, Brandon Tanev, who is still a bit of a folk hero in Winnipeg, signed with Pittsburgh, now is a member of the Kraken. He's got his crazy headshots. The hair is flowing, but he's still the Tasmanian Devil that we remembered coming to prominence here with Kopp and Lowry on the TLC line. So they're going to be a fun team to watch this year. And I think that for Jet fans, especially with a couple former Jets playing pretty prominent roles on the club this year, they'll be a popular club outside of the home team, I think, for casual fans when they're on the tube this season.
I think they're the new team. They're hot. They got a cool name, cool jerseys. I think their jerseys and branding is all well done. I just remember, even when I go back old, Huss. I'm sure you do too. But when the Ducks,
you're so ancient.
I'm so ancient. But when the Ducks and the Panthers came into the league, I remember all my friends were playing NHL '94, and everyone wanted to be the Ducks. Like, who cares that their best player was like Terry Yake and Bob Holder, but. But they were the Ducks. Same with the Panthers, too. They had a cool logo. They were the new team. So I think you're going to get some of that with the Kraken as well. I know their jerseys are flying off the shelves in Seattle. Seems to be doing even better than the Golden Knights. I need a Kraken hat.
The Kraken unis are absolutely fire. I have to say, I mean, I love the color scheme that they have. I think the logo is so cool. Hell, I think that the Trident logo that they have with the Space Needle in it too is one of the coolest logos that I've seen. So we'll see what happens on the ice with the team. But I think off the ice, they have nailed it. They've made some great hires. I think they've done phenomenal marketing. Certainly the imaging and branding of the team is great. But that only takes you so far until you lose 10 in a row. People are calling for the coach's head. But I think as we've seen, this isn't like expansion teams in the past. Vegas, obviously, and I think Seattle, in some ways, you get what you pay for. And I mean, they are spending record amounts of money to enter the National Hockey League. And I know it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but, they got something for that. And it was a much more favorable and advantageous expansion situation when it came to the players that they were coming in, that they were going to be able to get. So I still think that Vegas did a way better job of weaponizing what they had at the expansion draft. That's the one thing, Remo, we talk so much about all those deals and things that went into the draft, and none of it really materialized. And then the other thing was, they're going to have all this cap space that they can weaponize and make deals. I have a feeling, I think they got screwed a little bit by the success of the Vegas Golden Knights, because it was pretty clear that the rest of the National Hockey League didn't really want to play with the Kraken, and they essentially had to go and use some of that cap space on free agents, guys like Philip Grubauer, who will be the guy carrying the mail along with Manitoba's Chris Driedger for most of the time in the net this season.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out. I think they made, if teams don't want to trade with you for picks, then take a player and trade them. There were good players that didn't get picked, and they picked some players where you're like, who? And you don't think if they would have picked Max Domi, someone would have traded something for him instead of picking the guy who they took from Columbus, who no one had heard of. So there were a couple, I think, questionable moves. We'll see how it works out for them. I like some of their players. They did make a couple signings, but that wasn't even their home opener. I know they were missing some dudes yesterday. So hopefully they're back for the home and everything's good with them.
Hey, what about the ESPN coverage last night? Can we talk about that for a second before we dive headfirst into all the Jets news?
Mm.
My man Bucci Maine, John Bucci Gross, doing the play-by-play last night. And I first things first, I will admit I'm a huge Bucci fan. I've always loved his work on SportsCenter. He has been a massive proponent of hockey, of the National Hockey League during the ESPN dark era where they never seem to want to talk about it. So he's definitely a logical guy to get to do it, but he is a quirky dude. I mean, I believe the goal call on the second or third Kraken goal was holy shnikes.
Is that what he said?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
like Chris Farley. I'm not gonna get any criticism from me on that.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because I'm here for it. I love to have a different voice. I love to hear people have fun and do things a little differently and do it their way. But just knowing how the quote unquote hockey purists and the gatekeepers of the game react to literally anything that's new and different. I hadn't spent a lot of time online last night, so I wasn't really paying attention to what the reaction was. But I hope people will give Bucci a chance and some of the new things that they're doing. The one thing that I did notice, there's some really cool new camera angles. It looked like a different production so far. So can't wait to see that. And I guess we're going to get to see, I did see today on Twitter, Remo, a picture of Rick Tocchet running a treadmill with the TNT team. Biz Nasty was beside him, and Biz had like a massive afro. If you've seen any of the videos recently through the summer, he had a little helmet reduction. The hair's looking tight. He was on the treadmill as well, and they're looking forward to it. So yeah, I guess we're going to see Gretzky, Tocchet, Biz, all part of these new groups. So I'll tell you what, I think for a viewer, especially someone that, consumes a lot of out of market games or is on the NHL Center Ice package, I think it's an exciting time for hockey fans as far as what we're going to be getting served on a nightly basis from the new partners south of the border. But the bottom line right now is, Reem, I mean, if you're a Winnipeg Jet fan or really any team, this is a great time of year. You're just about to embark on the long journey that is 82 games for a spot in the Stanley Cup tournament. And certainly around these parts, there is a lot of excitement about what this team could be able to do when things get going tonight.
Yeah, and it's back, I know a lot of people were harping on ESPN for putting the Vegas abbreviation to VGS instead of VGK. So
that was Friedman.
I saw people being upset, that he was in charge. I get upset at that too when he was calling. It's funny, he tweeted out today, Win, W-I-N, agrees to a deal with Evgeny Svechnikov, woke up to that, and it's not Win. I know it's WPG, everyone knows that. I think he's just, is he intentionally getting it wrong?
Yes.
Or
yes,
just piss
he
everyone
literally
off?
does that. That is Elliot Friedman's way of trolling.
I think
people. And I get anxiety sometimes looking at his ridiculous, and I don't get anxious about very many things, but for some reason, when I see his bastardized abbreviations, it drives me nuts, to be honest. And he knows that, and he leans into it in a big, big way. Anyways, enough about that. Well, speaking of Win being on Elliot Friedman tweets, there was a couple moves today. We spent quite a bit of time yesterday talking about the opening day roster, which was set yesterday, which had Cole Perfetti on it and had Ville Heniola on it. We kind of talked about it, and I'll give Murat a lot of credit. He had a great piece over the course of the weekend about what the Jets were dealing with to get to that final roster, what they were trying to accomplish when it came to, as someone in the chat yesterday referred to as the salary cap gymnastics, to put themselves in the best possible spot going forward, which is what they needed to do, get as close to the cap as possible without going over, not including Brian Little's LTIR. And the youngsters, Heinola and Perfetti, also allowed them to establish a performance bonus pool that will help them going forward. There was no guarantees that either of them would be in the lineup tonight. One of them will be, one of them won't. We mentioned yesterday, Cole Perfetti got the call. He is going to be in today. And this could very well be a one-game promotion, if you will, while Mark Scheifele's out. We'll see what happens tonight, and we'll hear what the coach has to say after the game and tomorrow and Friday. But Perfetti is in. It should come as no surprise to anyone that Ville Heniola was officially assigned to the Manitoba Moose today. I mean, the writing was on the wall for this throughout training camp. We've spoke about it a million times. The Jets' top six is essentially set. I mean, you've got Morrissey and Schmidt, you got Dylan and Neil Pionk and Brendan and Dylan DeMello playing alongside Logan Stanley. There's your top six. Nate Beaulieu's the seventh defenseman. Be a good guy in the room, be a good guy in the press box. He will be the extra player that can come in on spot duty. But if there isn't a regular shift and there isn't playing time for Ville Heniola right now with the Winnipeg Jets, it makes no sense to have him in the press box with Beaulieu. It makes a lot of sense for him to be playing on what looks like a pretty stacked Manitoba blue line for Mark Morrison going forward. So, Remo, this was the other shoe dropping today, that Ville Heniola was going going down. But part of the reason why they did need to send him down, I think they wanted to because they wanted to play, first and foremost. The other thing is that Evgeny Svechnikov, who was not on yesterday's roster, we mentioned may sign a contract after day one of the season. That's exactly what happened. A 1-year, 2-way deal, league minimum, whatever, $750K. But the young man, the former first rounder, has earned himself another chance with this Jets organization based on a strong camp. And it looks like he'll be in the lineup tonight playing on that fourth line.
Yeah, I think whatever Ken had the lines as yesterday, and I'll just pull it up right here real quick. Yeah, Connor, Stasny, Wheeler, Pop, Dubois, Ehlers, Harkins, Lowry, Perfetti, Vesalainen, Nash, Svechnikov. And we talked about this yesterday, how Vesalainen had, started on the third line and kind of didn't really show that well in training camp. And it kind of was starting to remind me, Huss, of a former Finnish first-round pick who also played for the Jets, and Joel Armia, a guy who maybe came up as a scorer and, kind of found his niche with the Jets on the third line, now fourth. But there he was, made a great impact with Montreal last year in their playoff run. Maybe that's the career path we're looking at for Vesalainen rather than the, left-handed Line that we were thinking when we looked at the highlights of his one-timers.
All Finns are that good. All Finns are that good that can do that. Yeah. I'll just say this. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he did have a pretty good opportunity to get into that third line position, and he's not in it in game number 1. So take that for what it's worth. But I will say this. None of that really means a damn thing once they drop the puck tonight. I mean, if he goes out and plays his ass off and, does very well in the role that he's given, he'll have the opportunity to earn, more playing time from the coach or, maybe move up to that third line. But as it stands right now, I don't know, it's pretty hard to make an argument that Jansen Harkins doesn't deserve to be there. And Perfetti, for his part, with Stastny moving up from that line to take Mark Scheifele's spot, perfect opportunity to get him in a game on opening night. I mean, even if the plan isn't to have him with the team beyond the weekend, once the Moose get going, I think it's just important experience for him. I think he's a young man that has earned the spot. And, stranger things have happened, Remis. I know many, and myself included, expect Cole Perfetti to be back with the Moose relatively soon and at least play the first portion of the season, with Manitoba, barring injury up with the big club. But there's no guarantees on that. And I'll tell you what, if he goes out and shows that he belongs, has a real strong game, he'll probably have an opportunity to earn another game or two in the lineup. And then you see what happens. So I think there's some real intrigue about Perfetti's poor performance in particular when we focus in on him making his debut tonight. But this is about the team right now. And I got to tell you, I mean, really dating back to 17-18 and the team we thought we were going to see for the full 18-19 season. This is as talented a team as we've had, certainly as deep a blue line as they've had since that run to the Western Conference Final, as well as some younger players like Scheifele, particularly Nikolai Ehlers, kind of really coming into their own as, especially Ehlers, as stars in the league right now. And that's a big reason why I know so many people in the chat are chomping at the bit. Going to have a little pregame nap tonight because no one's going to want to miss the full 3 periods of action once we get going at 9 o'clock tonight from Honda Center.
Yeah, I forget where it was. Someone's writing, I'm going to have spaghetti for dinner in honor of Cole Perfetti. As far as Heinola goes, I mean, I think his NHL playing days were numbered from the, once they got, he didn't have as much of a shot at playing in the NHL once they acquired Dillon and Schmidt, and Logan Stanley solidified himself in there. So that wasn't much of a surprise. He made the opening day roster because, I guess, to get the performance bonus pool going, and Murat put that in detail and explained very well at The Athletic. Cole Perfetti, I kind of thought maybe they'd give him the first game just as a, I don't want to say as a carrot, but as like, hey, you did a great job last year, you've done a great job. But I think if he plays well, let's say they've got on the board, I don't know how you take him out. I mean, you look at offensive options there on the third line now with Appleton moving on, Perfetti could take that spot, and maybe he is ready. He played great for the Moose last year. Give him a shot, give him a couple games and see. And I think even if he goes down to the Moose, it's likely that he would come back again at some point. I know yesterday in my fantasy league, someone scooped him up right away once it came out that he was going to be playing on the third line. So I think that's going to be a player to watch, and I don't think they should be afraid of burning his first level of first year of his contract by playing him more than 9 games. if he's clearly ready for the NHL, because again, they need to win, and you need players who can help you win and who can score goals. And I think he seems like the best scoring option as far as who's available. I mean, we'll see what happens when Scheifele comes back and guys move down. But I mean, give the guy a shot, and game on, let's see how it goes.
Exactly. And again, everyone's healthy right now, and that probably won't be the case throughout the season. So, we should maybe do an over/under on how many games. Does Cole Perfetti get in more than 25 games this season in the regular season?
Here,
I'll tell you what, I think that he's definitely going to be a part of a playoff roster if the team does make it to that point. But again, we'll see what happens. It all starts tonight with game number 1. Hey, far away from Anaheim tonight, frankly, other side of the world, Reem, is a Jet draft pick that is turning some heads far earlier than I think anyone could have expected. I know you tweeted this out, but what is it, another 2 goals for Jets 5th rounder Dmitry Rashevsky today in the KHL?
Yeah, he's picked in the 5th round in this year's draft, and I just keep seeing every day on my Twitter tweeting out highlights of this guy's goals. I'm trying to find my mouse here. It seems to have disappeared. That's fantastic.
How do you lose your mouse?
I don't know. The cursor is gone. The cursor. Okay, it came back. It happened once before. Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects. He says 2 goals, 11 goals, 16 points in 17 games. He's among top 10 in league scores in the KHL. This is a 5th round pick for the Jets, who maybe was not on our radar, but I keep seeing him every day on Twitter scoring goals. So this is a guy we're going to watch out for. I don't know if he's going to be an impact this year, but certainly in the future.
Well, it won't be this year and it won't be next year because he actually just signed an extension in the KHL for another year. So, but I'll tell you what, if he's playing at that level, maybe the Jets got a nice little find there in the 5th round that you usually can't count on. All right, we'll focus in specifically on the Jets with Ted Wyman a little bit later on. Coming up, Dave Pagnotta from the 4th period. Going to hit all the big stories coming out of NHL opening night. We'll ask him about the Canadian team's thoughts on the Jets and more. Just before we do that, a big thanks to our newest sponsor, Culligan Water, over at 1200 Sargent Avenue, 694-5180. The Culligan folks, family owned and celebrating 65 years as the go-to people for all things water here in Winnipeg. They got water softeners and filters, whole home systems, drinking water systems, bottled water coolers, and bottle-free coolers for you and your family, not to mention water delivery services citywide, as well as commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Water's important. You got to stay hydrated. Do it with the best and the best service from people that have been doing it in Winnipeg for 65 years. Culligan Water, 1200 Sargent. Find out more at drinkculligan.com. And don't forget, up until Friday, they've got that special any home equipment system, just $9.99 a month for 3 months right now. Give them a call at 694-5180 and find out more. Winter is just around the corner. We're dropping the puck on the hockey season tonight. That means there will be some cold weather. Don't be that guy that waits till it's minus 30 to realize, damn, I need a new battery. Give Donnie and the guys a call at Manitoba Battery for all of your battery needs. Not just for cars, batteries for literally everything. Automotive, industrial, farm, power sports, quads, Sea-Doo, sleds, Metachair batteries. They've got it all, not to mention a maintainer on the fall special right now to keep your summer car and boat smooth through the winter. So it's turnkey and good to go come in the spring. They've got the best prices in town, save you money from going somewhere to like Costco, and they'll deliver it anywhere citywide. Find out more at Manitoba Battery, 1026 Logan, 783-8787, or online at manitobabattery.com. And before we bring Dave in, we'll be talking about the Jets, Habs, Leafs, Oilers, whatever your team is. Royal Sports has you covered. The best selection of licensed NHL merchandise in town, and dare I say maybe anywhere. If you're looking for a new Jet jersey, Royal's the spot. You need some new Bomber gear for the upcoming games, Royal's the spot. And if you are a hockey player, you already know that they've been the kingpins of all things hockey on and off the ice for over 35 years. Follow on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina, or pop by and see them at the Superstore, 750 Pembina Highway, along with Kings, Skate, Snow, and Surf. And don't forget, those Blake Wheeler Special Edition New Era hats are in at Royal Sports. All proceeds going to Cancer Care Manitoba. Awesome collab with the captain of the Winnipeg Jets. All right, let's drop the puck on the season and welcome back to Winnipeg Sports Talk, Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period. Dave, how are you, my friend? We made it through the preseason. We finally have live bullets in the holster last night and tonight for the Winnipeg Jets. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm jacked. I'm excited. It's a full 82-game season, so I'm geared up. I'm ready to go. I'm excited. And last night, I guess we got 1 out of 2 really exciting games, so not bad. Not bad. Decent start.
Yeah, no doubt. It was nice. That was just a little bit of an appetizer. You know, you have 2 games, you have the new team play a game, and then we get into a pretty nice schedule for the next couple days, and obviously the first full weekend of it. Let me just ask you what you thought about last night. Let's start off with the first game of the entire season. The Tampa Bay Lightning raising the banner and then throwing a bit of a dud out and getting rent. Now, this final score maybe is not exactly descriptive of the game, considering John Cooper just kept on pulling the goalie regardless of how many times it went in the empty net. But I got to tell you, for a team without Sidney Crosby, without Evgeny Malkin, that was a huge underdog on the road, that was not a result that I expected to see. And I have a feeling John Cooper, the Lightning, and their fans in that building didn't expect it either.
No, exactly. And that's probably why he pulled the goalie, just to send a message to the group being like, okay, well, guess what? It's a new season. We had won the cup twice. It's a new year. We got to win it all over again. So can't take your foot off the gas, even in game 1, which they obviously did. I mean, I don't even think they were in the car to get that game going. So that was a rough one, obviously, for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But, you know, better to get that out of the way now than down the road. And obviously this team, you know, certainly has the pedigree and the pieces to win. But again, just a little reminder, a little kick in the pants that any team can beat you on any night, even if their star guys are out of the lineup. So a rough one. Yeah, it was 6-2, but it was really 3-0. And then, you know, they pulled their goalie, they got 1. But this was a solid performance, an excellent road game for the Pittsburgh Penguins to start their year and build a little confidence up for them as well. Because a lot of people were questioning whether or not they'd be a playoff contender without Sid and to start, and obviously without Geno Malkin for what appears to be a few months.
Yeah. You know, I can't move on from the Penguins without mentioning Brian Boyle. You know, he got emotional in that interview with Emily Kaplan on the side. It really, maybe if you can't fill our listeners in on the story of him coming back to the National Hockey League, because he didn't retire. He just didn't have a job last year. And yet here he is playing and scoring in his first game with the Penguins without their top 2 stars.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. I mean, you know, with him not getting a job last season, he wanted to continue playing. He stayed in shape throughout the course of last season and this offseason, wanting to prove that he's still an NHL caliber player. And obviously with everything going on, you know, that we've all dealt with over these last couple of years, with his family situation and everything, he just wasn't able to get a home that worked for him. So he comes in, earns a spot in training camp on a professional tryout. And again, just bringing that heart and soul mentality and that strong performance day in and day out to the lineup for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They need that extra veteran presence and a guy that's a big body that isn't afraid to use it. He brings that, and obviously, you know, certainly paid off in game 1. Now, you don't want to read too much into game 1, not just with him, but with anybody. But you know, if he's the kind of guy that's going to be able to step up when it counts, especially in the room, just helping motivate the other guys, he's the type of guy to do it. He's a great guy. I've had the opportunity to meet him and hang out with him a bunch of times off the ice. Great family, great parents, great group all together. So this was a strong ad for Pittsburgh, and he earned it.
Well, the late game was Vegas and Seattle, the final 2 members of the National Hockey League. We all remember Vegas's magical first year, and I think that's cranked the expectations far higher than anyone would normally have for an expansion team for the Kraken. I think it's been a little more tough sledding dealing with the rest of the National Hockey League and general managers for Ron Francis. But yet, there they are, have a team, and it was a fun game. Got down early, came back into it. What were your first impressions in the inaugural game for the NHL's newest team, the Seattle Kraken?
Yeah, you saw the nerves in the first period from that group, especially in that 4 or 5 minute span or whatever it was where they gave up a couple goals. And not nerves because obviously these guys are proven NHL players, but just getting out there and being able to, you know, put the chirps and everything aside and all the expectations aside too, just wanting to hit the ice with the new club and to have a good showing Vegas won their first NHL game a number of years ago. I think they were in Dallas or Chicago, might be Dallas, but they won their first game. Seattle wanting to obviously do the same. Now they came short, but once they got through 20 minutes, they really started to hunker down, play better responsibly, be better defensively. They were able to help out Grubauer a little bit, and they got the offense going, and they were creating opportunities. This is going to be another pesky team that is built from the crease outwards, as we all know. Grubauer and that strong defense, which still seems to me they got too many defensemen back there, so I'm wondering what they're going to do with that. But how they're going to utilize that strength and then see if they can find some guys up front that can either regain some offensive flair or create some of their own that they weren't able to do on some of their other teams to this point.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what that home opener is like at the Climate Pledge Arena. I mean, from all accounts, David, I know you've been talking to people around the league, but as well as in that market, the anticipation for the National Hockey League in Seattle at that new Climate Pledge Arena, it really is something. And I think everyone's got different expectations of what this team will be on the ice. I can tell you off the ice, it seems it's already been an absolute success. And we're going to see that when they fill that building for Game 1.
Oh, absolutely. I was in Seattle for the expansion draft. I saw it firsthand, and not just the people that came out to the draft itself, but the atmosphere that city had. And the passion that was already there from hockey fans and the excitement level. There's merch everywhere. There's people that were, wearing different types of Kraken gear and, some of the, not knockoff, but some of the non-official stuff that people were doing and all that stuff. So there's a lot of excitement there. And I didn't get to check out the building because it's still under construction, or it was at the time in July. But the excitement level there is amped. I'm going to be going to the opener in a couple of weeks and just looking forward to that and seeing that or getting that experience and seeing the atmosphere now that we're at game time, now that it really matters. So in a couple of weeks, that will be the case. I think it's on the 23rd, but that city is pumped for it. And the league is too, to have the 32nd franchise. It's now official that they're part of the league. I mean, this will play a factor too. The HRR is going to start kicking in as well. So the league's excited about that. And look, they already set a record for merchandise sales in the first month or the first 2 months, or I think they're continuing it. And this is not just in the NHL. This is of all the sports with Fanatics. So it's a good sign, a huge good sign, and a good one for the league.
Dave Pagnotta is our guest. You can follow him on Twitter at The Fourth Period and check out the website, The Fourth Period. Let's move north of the border, Dave. We had the fun year, the Canadian division. Everyone's back in their regular spots last year. I want to ask you about a few of the top stories around Canada. And let's start in the nation's capital. I mean, there is one remaining RFA unsigned, and it's Brady Tkachuk. And listen, as a Winnipeg dude that grew up and saw one of the most contentious contract negotiations in 1.0 history with Keith Tkachuk signing the offer sheet, seeing the way Matthew Tkachuk and his representatives were able to get the deal they got with Calgary, I don't think anyone expected it to be easy, but man, going into the season without their most important player, a huge blow for Ottawa. What are you hearing about Tkachuk, the situation, and is there a resolution in sight? And if it is, how does it work?
I mean, one side has to bend. It's really that simple. The Senators want the long-term commitment. Tkachuk's side has been pushing on the short-term deal, the bridge type deal. And this isn't to say that he doesn't want to be there. I mean, I can tell you genuinely, he loves the market. I've had a chance to talk to him a number of times away from the rink about it. He loves the market. He loves the city. He loves what they've been building in Ottawa. And that's a 180 from how he originally felt when he was drafted. He wasn't too fond of going to Ottawa, but everything that they're piecing together has changed the mindset. They know Tkachuk's camp that bonuses are not on the table. The Sens don't give him out. Shabbat's 8-year, $64 million deal, no bonuses. The 6-year deal for Paterson, no bonuses. So they've accepted that. But it's now about term and how that structure is going to come into play. And they just haven't been able to agree on that. And they were working, it sounded like last month, they were finally getting towards that long-term deal. And then just something kind of fell apart. I got to assume it's the overall number, which is why Tkachuk's camp reverted back to a shorter-term 3-year deal, two or 3 years. And that's where we're at. I mean, it's really going to come down to who's going to budge. And the lack of urgency isn't necessarily a bad thing because the Sens are still rebuilding or still going through that process. They're ready to take the next steps. They have a ton of cap space. So whatever the cap number is going to be when he signs in season, if it's obviously going to be, if it's $8 million, well, it's going to be adjusted based on how far we are into the season. But that doesn't matter to the Sens. They've got the most cap space in the league. So that's not a factor. It really is coming down to who's going to get the best deal. And really, it's either short-term or long-term unless one of the sides budgets.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time doing shows with the guys in Calgary over the last few months, and one of the things that has always been in the background is that Matthew Tkachuk has a $9 million option going on and go to free agency. Yeah. And that, I think Ottawa's watching that and does not want to be in that situation, and that is sort of how we got to the spot we're in. No such issue for Nick Suzuki in Montreal. Yeah. An 8-year extension just south of $8 million. This is about as early as you will see anybody get an 8-year extension. How much does this have to do with what happened with their budding rivalry with the Canes and the matching offer sheets and all that, Dave? And just thoughts on the deal. A very important young player for Montreal getting inked to the max.
Yeah, the offer sheet threat definitely escalated things because you look at Montreal's cap numbers, they're over the cap next season. And of course, we assume Shea Weber's career is unfortunately done. If that is the case, they've got that flexibility. But they're over the cap for next season as it currently stands. So even with now Suzuki locked in. So they wanted to avoid that. But this is a very important player, as you said. I mean, this is a guy that they feel is going to be one of the top two-way centers in the league. He draws comparisons to some of the top guys out there in terms of how he's playing. Patrice Bergeron is the obvious one. But there's some Barkov and some Kopitar there, but not as offensive as those two particular guys. So Montreal loves the fact that they were able to get this done. They're comfortable with the number. They feel that if he can hit 60 points, maybe 70 sometime this season, then that will put him on the trajectory of being that $8 million or near $8 million player. So they bought in a little bit on the potential. But they feel, and people that I've talked to there, that he's going to hit that and exceed that. So they're comfortable with that deal from a long-term side of things. And obviously Suzuki, pretty happy about that deal. What was the comment he made? Something about playing NHL 2000 or whatever it was and giving him whatever contract he wanted.
He says, I was to give myself.
He didn't start with that in the negotiation.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, before we head out west, what's the latest on Matthews? And we know the Leafs are going to be going in, and they're going to miss him big time if he's out for a while. Where are things at with 34?
Yeah, they're slow playing that one. They don't want to rush him. He's probably going to miss the first few games of the season. They're hoping it doesn't go beyond 5. But they're just going to slow play it. They don't want him to rush coming back. As we've seen in the past, some guys come back a little bit too early. They're going to play for 20, 30 games, and then, they're out for the rest of, or at least a good chunk of it. So they're going to slow cook that. They want to make sure he's going to be okay before he gets back into it fully. The other thing, too, Mitch Marner's a game time decision after taking that little collision from Wayne Simmons the other day. So he's going to be a game timer tonight against Montreal. So we'll see if he gets in that lineup. But if these are the injuries that are happening for a lot of these teams, it's better to happen now than down the stretch. So at least they'll take that.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Dave Pagnotta of the Fourth Period is with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk as we get ready for the Jets' first game of the season tonight, 9 p.m. Before that, as Dave just mentioned, Habs and Leafs get going coast to coast on national television. Let's move out west. We've talked a lot about, we spent half the season playing Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver last year in the Canadian division. They're all back in the Pacific, which I think most would agree is the weakest division in hockey right now, at least on paper going in. And there's a big opportunity for teams like Calgary and Vancouver that might be really borderline in other divisions to get back to the playoffs. From your perspective, Dave, before we drop the puck, Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver, how do you rank those teams as far as likelihood of being in the postseason tournament?
Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary for me in that order. I'm not buying in yet to Daryl Sutter in Calgary. I don't think it's a good match. I don't think it's a good play overall with the guys that they have there. I'm not sure to see it. Look, it's a full season, so it's a clean slate, and he can clean things up and get a full training camp in. So I give him the benefit of the doubt there, but. I think the defense isn't as good. I don't know if the players are going to resonate with the type of coaching tactics that Daryl has brought into the equation. So I'm not buying in on that. I think they're going to be on the outside of the playoffs looking in. I like Edmonton. I like the depth that they brought and the acquisitions that they made in the offseason. I know a lot of people a little questioning Duncan Keith and Cody Ceci. I like the fact that they went out there and brought in those kinds of players to shore up that back end, and bringing in Fogle as well up front. Obviously Hyman. So they addressed a lot of needs. Goaltending is going to be the biggest question mark as to whether Mike Smith can play 50-plus games this season. And if not, how are they going to address that? Do they go to Columbus and ask for Korpisalo or figure something out? I wouldn't be shocked if that ultimately happens. But I like them. And, I mean, look, you got Draisaitl and McDavid, so that's a big plus, and that'll propel you forward. I also really like Vancouver. I think the Canucks are going to shock a few people with how well they're going to do. Now, I have them below Edmonton, but it wouldn't surprise me if it flips because I just love their depth. I love the fact that they've got 3 lines now that they can produce offense with, and they retooled that back end, bringing in Ekman-Larsson, bringing in Poolman. I like the fact that they were a lot deeper. They're a lot stronger, and I think the Garland acquisition is going to be a sneaky good one for them offensively.
Yeah, well, now they've got Quinn Hughes and Elias signed. I mean, I think Canucks fans are feeling a little bit better about the season. It was sort of bizarre that they did all these other moves, and then you're looking at it, and they barely had enough to get it done. They, did a good job at getting it done. But again, 3 years for Elias, 6 years for Quinn Hughes. And you mentioned Tucker Poolman. He had an up and down season, to say the least, playing quite a bit of time in the top 4 with Josh Morrissey last year. Couldn't help but notice he's paired with Quinn Hughes going into tonight's opening game. So that'll be interesting to see how that works. Just quickly on Calgary. As I mentioned, spent a lot of time doing shows in Calgary over the last few months. At the end of the season, I mean, the conversations there were, are they blowing the entire thing up? How many moves will be made? How many of these guys have just played their last game as Flames? And Blake Coleman comes in and Mark Giano goes out. That is pretty much that's pretty much it. How much different can we expect the Flames to be? You sort of nailed it. They're really buying into the Sutter effect, making this team better. I'm not sure how realistic that is.
Right. And it may work out in the first little bit, but I can tell you from covering the LA Kings for a long time during their cup runs and knowing guys on that team, that message started to hit deaf ears. So I don't know if he's going to alter his mentality. He probably won't, but you never know. I just don't know how that's going to resonate with guys like Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau. I don't know if that's really going to work, if that's going to work for Lindholm and Granlund and some of those guys. Maybe Matthew Tkachuk, because he probably just won't give a crap. But some of the other guys on the team, I don't know. I don't know if that's the type of coach that resonates well with those kinds of players. Coleman, different story, and Tkachuk, I mean, those are different breeds, but I think other guys, and there have been tough guys in the NHL that have been coached under Daryl Sutter, and the message again, just it's not as effective as it was back, even 10 years ago. So I'm very curious to see how this comes out. The fact that there's no Johnny Gaudreau contract right now on an extension is a little puzzling to me, because it sounded like there was at least a message that everybody was sending out was positive talks, something's going to get done, positive talks, and we're not there. So I'm curious to see how this progresses as the season gets going, and whether or not he's going to be with the Flames by the deadline if they're out of it. If they are out of it and he doesn't have a contract, he could be the number 1 guy on the market and then potentially the number 1 guy in the free agent market in the summer.
All right, Dave, before we go, we saved the best for last. What are your thoughts on the home team here, the Winnipeg Jets? Kevin Cheveldayoff had a great offseason. The amount of excitement and positivity, really, since the minute that Nate Schmidt and Brendan Dillon got to town has been significant. We know the team has been good in the past. How much better can they be? And just your thoughts on the Jets' outlook going into tonight's 1 of 82.
Yeah, I like it. I like what they brought to the table, and I love the fact that they finally, and we've all been talking about this for 2-3 seasons at least, fix that defense, make it bigger, make it stronger, make it more reliable. They've done that with the addition of Schmidt and with Dillon. I like that. I like the fact that they've got, again, a lot of depth up front. They can juggle things around. You've got a full season of Pierre-Luc Dubois. You've got Scheifele coming back, wanting a little bit of revenge this season after what happened in the postseason. So I like the makeup of this team, and obviously a lot of it's going to count on the health and the performance of Connor Hellebuck. If he is still the goaltender we all believe him to be, then this is going to be a team that's going to fight for the division for me. And again, I like what they bring. I'm interested to see how long Cole Perfetti sticks around and if he does cement himself on this roster, because he's going to be a hell of a player, not just for the Jets, but in the league.
Yeah, well, we've been spending a lot of time talking about Perfetti. Obviously, he's in the lineup tonight. I think you could make an assumption that this is maybe a one-game thing because Scheifele's suspended for today. I know that they wanted to play a lot. They wanted to play in a top-line role the way he did last year with Manitoba. And the fact that he's able to go to the AHL as opposed to back to the OHL is significant. That being said, I do think we'll see a number of games from Perfetti as the season goes on, and it wouldn't at all surprise me if he was a regular by the end of the season going into hopefully a playoffs. Just one more thing. You mentioned Mark Scheifele, and he's going to be pissed off sitting in the press box tonight, still thinking about what happened in Montreal, trying to get past that. But I'm interested in your perspective on Mark Scheifele as it pertains to the Olympic team. He is a guy, you'll see him on a number of people's lists. He's just left off a number of lists. I mean, from my perspective, I think, we know the sort of young man that he is, how motivated he is, how he wants to be amongst the best. I think that will bring out the best of him over the first half of the season. But I also think that he'll need that to be part of Team Canada. Where are you at on Scheifele's Olympic chances?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's, and there's so many good players out there. So I think he's one of the guys on that can teeter-totter either direction, just depending on how they want to kind of build their lineup. But, I mean, if he goes out, and that's a motivator in and of itself. I mean, Drew Doughty talked about that from a defensive perspective, that he's going into this season highly motivated because everybody's kind of written him off. So he's got something to prove, not just from a season perspective, but also with respect to the Olympics. I think Scheifele will be coming into this year with a similar type of mindset because he's kind of that bubble type player for a lot of the different lists that are out there. I think he comes in, wants to be able to project this team forward and the Jets into contender status, but also selfishly wanting to do well so he can be part of that Canadian Olympic club. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No doubt about it. Dave Pagnotta is with us from the fourth period. Dave, this is a great chat. Can't wait to do this again later on this season. Say hi to Dennis and the guys and to fill people in on what you guys have cracking over at thefourthperiod.com as we get underway with the new season.
Yeah, new season. So we're pretty jacked, and we're expanding our content across the board with a lot of fantasy aspects and a lot of daily material that we'll be producing starting next week. Little behind the eight ball in terms of the start of the season, but we'll get there. But we've got that coming. And then also with the magazine as well on the print side, we're back in full production now that things are seemingly back to normal. So we've got the print magazine as well. That'll be back in action starting next month.
Always a pleasure having you on the program, man. Keep up the great work, and let's do this again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
There it is, Dave Pagnotta. Give him a follow on Twitter at David Pagnotta, of course, and you should be following the fourth period as well. We'll focus in on the Jets. Going to definitely have to hit the Bombers as well, and maybe even a little curling with the man of all trades, Ted Wyman of the Winnipeg Sun, in just a minute. Speaking of curling, a big thanks to Princess Auto, one of our newest sponsors here, a great sponsor of the sport here in Manitoba, as well as two Manitoban Olympic hopeful teams, the Mike McEwen Rink and Jen Jones. We will be getting to some curling talk, especially as we get closer to the Olympic qualifying tournament coming up next month in Saskatoon. But Princess Auto, you know them well. I've never seen a more popular new sponsor. People love Princess Auto, and I think they know that that's the spot where you'll find the best deals and the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Princess Auto prides themselves on helping you create the ideas in your head, whether for your shop, work site, or home. Princess Auto knows you love finding the right tools and equipment to build or repair your things yourself. Pop by any of the two local locations. Of course, Princess Auto headquartered right here in Winnipeg, but coast to coast. And you can shop 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and start thinking about your next project at princessauto.com. Little Brown Jug's got a lot going on these days, not to mention the new fall beer, the Double, which they say is compared to a butter tart. Sign me up for that. Of course, they've got the flagship brand, the 1919, all those great beers we enjoyed through the summer with the summer variety pack, which still have a few left. You get that $5 credit if you're buying it at the tap room or online at littlebrownjug.ca. and a bit of an outdoor bonfire party coming up on Friday. S'more beer, please, they call it. Some beers, a little bit of a cookout, a great spot if you're looking for maybe a few outside before the Bomber game on Friday night. Little Brown Jug's the place to be. Go see them down on William Avenue or check out their website at littlebrownjug.ca with delivery citywide. And man, it's a great time to be kicking it at the Boston Pizza Lounge, isn't it? Get together with your pals tonight, 9 p.m. Jets opener. Tomorrow, NFL football Thursday nighter. Friday, Bombers. Saturday, Jets. The BPs are open again and waiting for you and your friends to come in and enjoy the games on the big screen, not to mention the pizza, the wings, the schooners. It's all there at your local Boston Pizza. Or if you're not planning on going out tonight, make an order for delivery to kick off the season right at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's chop it up with our man Ted Wyman of the Winnipeg Sun. Lots to get to, focusing on our local scene. And Ted joins us now. Fire off the drip alert because Ted is back. What's going on, my friend? How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I got to tell you, what a time to be a sports enthusiast, isn't it? You know, it always is around this time of year, but just especially right now, and the NHL's starting up, you got the baseball playoffs, you got both football leagues that people around here love to follow. And as you mentioned, it's even, getting right into the thick of curling season. It is one heck of a time to be a sports fan.
No, it is. Last weekend, I mean, on top of it all, one of the great heavyweight fights of the last 20 years, going at it with Fury and Wilder. I mean, there literally was something going on at all times, pretty much nonstop. We don't have enough time to hit all of it, but I am absolutely with you. But, from a local standpoint, Ted, you've been covering our local teams for a long time, and I realize we're in a very strange era of life coming out of the pandemic, hopefully, dealing with everything else that we have had. But, to your point, the Bombers are the class of the league right now. The Jets have about as much excitement and optimism going into a season that we've seen in a long time. The Moose, for their part, are going to have as stacked a roster as we've seen since they returned. The Ice are arguably the best team in the Western Hockey League. I mean, if you're a Winnipeg sports fan that has been, waiting to get out to see your teams, now is the time to do it, because I can't remember a time where we could actually look at all, first of all, having as many teams as we have right now, that's grown, but having them all be as competitive with the expectations that they have going in. And the Bombers have really raised the bar over the last couple of years, but the rest of the local hockey squads are certainly poised to have special campaigns as well.
They sure are. Shall we call it Tampa Bay North? I mean, I do know the Rays just got eliminated, but they've been doing a lot of winning in Tampa lately, so I don't think anybody was feeling too sorry for them. But in all honesty, you're right. You look at all these different teams that are being successful, and it's not really something that many people in Winnipeg have had that experience of as fans. It's unfortunately, there's been a lot more hardship than success in Winnipeg over the years, but the Blue Bombers have set that standard, winning the Grey Cup in 2019 and emphatically following it up so far, looking like, great contenders to be back in the Grey Cup and potentially win it. They're certainly the favorites for that. And then there's the Jets, and really we're talking on paper here when we talk about the Jets, because we haven't seen them go out and do what they need to do to prove that they're as good of a team as we think they are. But they've got something pretty special in the room when you've got Connor Hellebuck coming out the day before the game saying, this is a Stanley Cup caliber team, and it's time for us to put our foot forward and prove it. And, just to have anyone say that, I mean, he's a positive guy, but you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself by saying that. And so I think that should give fans, a feeling of how this team feels about themselves.
Well, and it's funny you bring up that statement from Connor yesterday, because I always love listening to Hellebuck. I mean, he's a guy that doesn't really seem to have a filter. And I mean, it's like he's pumped with truth serum every time he gets in front of a microphone. And, he's not shy to say that he wants to be the best. He's here to win a Stanley Cup. And you listen, you want a team to have that sort of a belief in it. But to have a guy, and we'll spend a lot of time gushing over Nikolai Ehlers and looking at the points of Mark Scheifele, but let's be real here, Ted. Connor Hellebuck is the most important player on the Winnipeg Jets. And to have him in that mindset, we've seen what he's been able to achieve individually, winning the Vezina, what he's been able to do for a team that, many people would argue overachieved because of his play. With the additions on the blue line, a more mature group up front, younger players, I mean, there should be good expectations for this club. And to be honest, it kind of starts with the guy in net.
Well, nobody's calling the Winnipeg Jets a Stanley Cup contender if it's not for Connor Hellebuck being in net. That's the foundation. That's the rock upon which all of this is built. It's one of the reasons why Kevin Cheveldayoff went out and did what he did in the offseason, which was to, take a look at what you have under contract, the players that have committed to this organization, and then say, we've got a window. And it's open now, and we have to try to jump through it. And what we're going to do is add, play to the cap, and try to take a run at it right now. And every single person in that Jets room knows that Cheveldayoff did that. Every single person on the coaching staff knows that that was what the organization chose to do. And the pressure is on them now to come through and make sure that this is good. Paul Maurice knows it. He knows that he can't have a terrible start. There's just no way, because at some point, if you're all in, you have to perform, or else changes have to be made, right? So there's definite pressure here. It's on all of the players, but they do seem to be embracing it. They do seem to be enjoying it. I think the addition of Nate Schmidt has kind of changed that locker room a little bit. It's added a lot more levity to it. You could tell there's a lot of players having fun, and they're enjoying the fact that they're a good team. Now, how much will they be enjoying it once they get out there and start playing all those tough Central Division games? I'm not so sure. But right now, there's an awful lot of happiness and enthusiasm and optimism with that team.
Ted Wyman of the Winnipeg Sun with us. Let's focus in on the lineup tonight. Well, really the last couple days. I know there's been a lot. You guys have been writing about it. I mean, the newspaper. I mean, everyone's been talking about this final roster. And, once you got the players in, how do you make the numbers work? And we won't melt people's brains with the intricacies of the salary cap. But we knew that what we saw on Monday might not be the way the lineup looks tonight. And sure enough, that has happened. Ville Heniola has been sent to the Manitoba Moose. Svechnikov has been signed, but with Mark Scheifele out, Cole Perfetti is making his NHL debut tonight. Where are you on this? I mean, is this sort of a one-game reward opportunity for Perfetti that probably won't continue past tonight when Scheifele comes back? Or is it up to the young man to make the decision that hard for Paul Maurice to take him out of the lineup tonight?
I think it's both those things. I think that it easily could be a one-off. And then take a look, because, they can play him, 8 games without his contract kicking in. So, I mean, there's certainly an opportunity to have a look at Cole Perfetti, but also if he has a great game tonight, if he's, whether he scores or not, if he looks right at home in the National Hockey League and he adds to what this team can do, on a line with Adam Lowry and Jansen Harkins, sure, there's going to be an opportunity for them to take a look at him again. I mean, I think he's already changed some opinions with his training camp here. As I said before, it's easy to put him in the lineup here because you can, and you need to with Scheifele out. But I think he earned this spot. I don't think that this is just a token thing that they're putting Cole Perfetti in. I think he had a very good training camp. I think he had good preseason games. I think he even looked good playing with Lowry in the past, and Paul Maurice said the Calgary game was a big positive for him just last Friday. So they're taking a look. And if he does well, if he performs, how could you not take a further look? But I do think the more likely thing with him is that he does spend some time in the American Hockey League, and that maybe we see him later in the season. Maybe we see him for a playoff run. Maybe it's kind of a la Cole Caulfield kind of thing in Montreal, who obviously had a fantastic playoff after not really playing with the Habs all year. Maybe you're going to see Cole Perfetti come on late and have an opportunity to contribute big time.
Yeah, I'm sort of there with you on that. I mean, I think that they will be spending some time with the Moose. Injuries can change everything. I mean, I think if you have a player in the top 6 that is out and Perfetti performs well, there's an opportunity maybe to come in earlier. We were just talking with people in the chat whether if we put an over-under on number of games with the big club this year at 25, Assuming that at some point due to injuries or whatever, he's, plays the 10 and there's no issue with playing him. Does he get that much? I think it might actually end up being in and around that area. But to your point, Ted, if he does have a strong season and continues the improvement and the development path that he's on, I think he absolutely, regardless of where he plays the majority of this season, becomes a possibility to have a nice boost to the lineup come playoff time. Ted Wyman's with us. Ted, the other thing that happened today was finally an NHL contract for Evgeny Svechnikov. And I know Mark Sports Video, by the way, was asking in the chat if he's a UFA or an RFA. He is a restricted free agent after this deal. I mean, he's 24 years old, so there's still a little bit of time. I mean, a real low-risk acquisition. I mean, about the lowest risk at all. They didn't pay anything to get him. They signed him to a Moose deal first. Now he's earned a spot on the club, Ted. This is one of those spots. I still scratch my head as to how he was available in the fashion that he was, being a former first rounder at the cost that he was. But this is a guy that has played his way onto the team as well. And assuming he gets there in time for the game, I don't believe he's out for the morning skate right now in Anaheim, that he'll be there. And that'd be another sort of found money, I'd say, for the Winnipeg Jets, which has added a little bit more competition into that bottom six right now. Certainly, Vesalainen's another guy we should mention who sort of had the opportunity first for the third line, won't be there for tonight's game. But thoughts on that bottom six, and in particular the signing of Svechnikov today and how he fits into the Jets puzzle?
I like the word you used, competition, Huss, because I think that's what part of this is. It's like it's not really set. There are various players who could fit into that mix, and it's not necessarily, other than Riley Nash, on that fourth line, who's obviously more of a veteran, it's not necessarily going down that road where it was last year, where it was Matthew Perreault and Nate Thompson and Trevor Lewis are all well into their 30s. It's not that like that now. There's going to be chances for younger guys. I think the fans in Winnipeg, you can tell they really like the idea of giving Svechnikov a look. I mean, what have you got to lose? Realistically, it's not a high risk contract, and he might be a very good player for you if he's a late bloomer, which is what you're looking for. And I thought he did look pretty good in training camp. I thought he looked good in the preseason games. I think a lot of people thought so. So this is a great, I think it's a really nice look for them. Obviously, people love the fact that Perfetti's in for game one. And I'm sure fans would love to see more and more of that. I think they'd love to see Ville Heniola up in the lineup as well at some point. But right now, the Jets, the one thing about Perfetti that I think is interesting is you talked about that over-under with the 25 games, okay? So most likely in my mind, I'm thinking less than 10 games. But if you're all in as an organization and he's making you better, you have an obligation, in my opinion, to play him and not worry about what that means for his future contract.
Well, especially when you look at the window right now of this club. I mean, the remaining time on Scheifele's contract, Hellebuck's contract, Wheeler's contract, Ehlers' contract, not to mention the defense. And this is where it gets complicated for Ville, Dylan Sandberg, and the most talented Moose blue line we've seen at any point since the team came back. Your top five defensemen, Ted, all have 3 years minimum left on their deals, and there's Logan Stanley there. So, I mean, it's a whole nother conversation depending on how this season goes. If there just simply isn't room for a number of talented young players, what sort of assets are those, and what might they do for the team a little bit later on in the season? What do you make of Vesalainen's situation going into tonight? I kind of mentioned that, it seemed like, here you go. Here's the spot with Adam Lowry. Go ahead and take it. And that didn't really happen. And to be honest, the guy that it looks like is going to be playing with Lowry was the guy that did earn it, who had a disappointing season last year, getting lapped by a few guys, and that was Jansen Harkins.
Yeah, I think that Vesalainen's a bit of an enigma for me. And I mean, obviously, as an observer of this Jets team over the years, the problem is supposedly he has a great shot. I've never seen him use it, and he hasn't scored. He's played 17 NHL games. He hasn't scored. He's not looking like a guy that's just got that nose for the net. So I don't want to be overly critical of him, because the guy's got to get a chance, right? And he's going to get in there. He's going to get more regular playing time this year, whether it be on that third line or on the fourth line. And he's going to have a chance to start doing some of the things that we've heard about him. But until we see it, it's pretty hard to predict what you're going to get out of Christian Vesalainen. The fact is, much like Svechnikov, he's a first-round draft pick, I think 1 year later or 2 years later than Svechnikov, and he hasn't quite panned out yet. But there's no reason to believe that he can't be a later bloomer, just like Svechnikov could be. If you think one, you might think the other. And I think that's a nice position for the Jets. And I honestly think Jansen Harkins has earned every single bit of what he's getting, which is a chance to play a little further up in the lineup. He's got good speed. He played really well, I thought, in the playoffs 2 years ago. It wasn't even 2 years ago yet. It was really only 1 year ago, but in 2 seasons ago. And then he didn't get much of a chance last year. And I think a lot of people thought he should, but I think he was very good about it. He was patient. He was a good teammate. And now he's getting his crack. And that's just good to see.
Ted, I want to ask you something that I talked about with Pagnotta in the last segment here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, and it's about Mark Scheifele. He's not going to be in the lineup tonight. I'm sure he'll be, chewing his lip off, being angry about not being able to be there with his team tonight. But he'll be back for game number 2, and you assume that, first things first, you want to help your team win. But I'm interested in your perspective, having followed his entire career, as to what the prospect of the Canadian Olympic team does to the first half of Mark Scheifele's season. He's already been an incredibly motivated player, but I certainly think that extra care of knowing that each and every night he's going to be being measured against other Canadian Olympic hopefuls might propel Mark Scheifele to his best season yet.
Well, I think the Jets and their fans, their organization would all hope that that's true. For him, it's an interesting situation because I think in the last couple of years in the lead up to these Olympics, it's been fairly well believed that Scheifele would be on the team. Now I think he's more of a bubble player, and that's kind of the way that he's being described by a lot of people. So it does come down to this first half of the season, and they're not going to be able to refuse him a spot on that team if he is right up there in the top 10 in scoring in the NHL, which he has the capability to be, and he certainly has the team to be in the top 10 in scoring. With the players that he's going to play with, great wingers like Connor and Wheeler, obviously power play time. He's also going to, maybe there's time with Ehlers, who's such a tremendous talent. He's got support at center with Pierre-Luc Dubois. If Dubois has a good season, which, people are hopeful of, but we don't know. It's hard to say. But he could be a really great 1B or at least number 2 center, which takes a lot of pressure off of Scheifele. Really good, a lot of good offensive defensemen. I like his chances of putting up a lot of points. And, he's got to play a certain style. He's got to show them that he can be versatile. He's going to be on the wing. He's going to have to be physical. I think he does all those things. So it is a really important time. And I think he's got a shot. But that's a heck of a Canadian team.
No doubt about it. Ted Wyman's with us here from the Winnipeg Sun. Of course, the Sun will be covering the Jets season top to bottom beginning tonight. And we always love having Ted on the program. Ted, I do want to quickly transition from the hockey club, which everyone's talking about tonight because it's the opener, to the Bombers, who have been the talk of the town in the Canadian Football League for certainly this season. Well, really dating back to 2019 when they won it the last time. 8-1 right now. Coming off, an abject humiliation of the Edmonton Elks Friday at IG Field, and a game that could have been far worse in the score department if the Bombers, I say Achilles heel in quotes because, they're winning by 27 instead of 35 right now. But the kicking game, it is somewhat unbelievable that the kicking game has been as ugly as it has been, and it hasn't even come close to costing them a game. Unrealistic to think that can happen if you want to win a Grey Cup. And there was Mike O'Shea giving a vote of confidence to Ali Murtada, who's going to get another opportunity. What did you think about the win and then the kicking conundrum that the Bombers find themselves out, and how much longer can they continue going back to the well?
That game could easily have been 50-3. There's a reason why Trevor Harris said that was the most embarrassing game he'd ever been a part of. And he got hooked, and he's not playing anymore this week.
It's insane.
He probably was rightly embarrassed. But honestly, the Bombers are a machine. They're a juggernaut defensively. The offense is competent. A little bit better than that. I'm being a little hard on them. I think they're actually a very good offense, one of the top ones in the league. But they're not at that same level as the defense, and they didn't play very well, at least early in this last game, and that kept Edmonton in it. It gave this illusion that Edmonton was somehow in the game, but Edmonton never even scored more than 3 points, so that obviously wasn't true. Then you talk about this kicking game, and yeah, it's not so much about Ali Mortada as it is about the fact that this is the third kicker they've tried this year. They've had very little success. They're at 52.4% in field goal kicking overall, which is absolutely atrocious. Mortada himself is 4 for 10. Mark Leggio is in there. He actually kicked a game-winning field goal, and he had one good game, but his field goal kicking and his point after kicking was wild. You know, he was kicking it 10 yards right of the uprights or left of the uprights or short. He was not kicking consistently well. They weren't good-looking kicks. You watch Ali Mortada's kicks, they were good kicks. They were straight. They were where he was putting them. But he was missing by a football on both sides of the upright. So I'm not excusing that because it's not good enough. It absolutely is not good enough to miss all those field goals. But I get where Mike O'Shea is coming from. It looks mechanically like he's kicking the ball well, and he's very close to the uprights, and he's just got to make some little adjustments, and he's going to have his chance. Obviously, very hard to do in game. But as you know, Huss is a huge follower of football on both sides of the border. There were 25 missed field goals in the NFL last week. Mason Crosby, one of the great all-time kickers, misses 3 times. Misses a point after, and then wins the game for the Green Bay Packers in overtime. And in the CFL, Boris Beatty was missing for Toronto. There's a lot of bad place kicking going on, and it isn't going to be easy to replace anybody because who's out there? I do know for a fact that they've talked to Liram Hajrullahu, who's an NFL free agent right now, but he's looking at that kicking situation in the NFL with everybody missing, and he's thinking, I got a chance to be the next guy up here. So he's not ready to come to Canada. And the Bombers I don't think that that's looking like an option for them. So it's either Mortada or they're finding somebody else or they're trying Leggio again. And that's really all they've got. And they just need to cross their fingers and hope that one of these guys is able to do it consistently.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is the CFL trade deadline next week?
They changed the date around because of the 14-game schedule. I think it might be the 25th, but you're going to I don't have that number on hand.
It's right around the corner. There's a little bit of time left. Let's just say Mortada has another game like he's had.
Yeah.
And they realize, okay, we have to do something. Do you think there's any chance that they reach out to Lapo and the guys over in Ottawa and try and get Lewis Ward, who's got an expiring contract, or even Sean White, now that it seems like the Elks are sort of throwing up the white flag on their season?
Absolutely. There is a chance. It's on the table. I know for a fact it's been discussed internally, if not with these teams. But the question for me, especially if I'm Ottawa, is even if you're getting a really good Canadian player out of the Bombers in exchange for Lewis Ward, who's kicking for you this year? Who's kicking for you next year? Who's kicking for you down the road? We've seen how hard it is to replace players like Hajrullahu and Justin Medlock. Are they going to put themselves in that position where they're the team now that has to figure that out? And I don't know how it works. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't know how that works for Ottawa. And with Edmonton's situation, that's different. Sean Wright's an older player. I don't know where his what his future looks like. And I do believe the Elks do have a player on their practice roster who's a kicker as well. So maybe they get a chance. That might be a better option because maybe you could get Sean White in here. The Elks could have a look at their other kicker, and then who knows what happens at the end of the season. There would probably be some sort of a conditional draft pick. If the Bombers were to sign a player, then they'd be giving up more draft picks to the other team, or maybe they just would let someone go and the other team could sign him back anyway. I mean, there's lots of options there, Huss, but it's not going to be just that simple to snap your fingers and say, we'll give you a good player and you're going to give us your kicker, because that's an important player too.
We spent quite a bit of time talking about Kenny Lawler at the beginning of last week. He has served his 1-game suspension. Everything happening off the field will continue to go forth. Should we expect 89 back in the lineup and looking like his old self, or might be there more to get back in the lineup for Lawler considering what went down?
Well, as far as I know, I think he is going to be back in the lineup, and he is still leading the CFL in receiving even after missing a week. And a great chance to just pick up where he left off. I thought the Bombers really missed him. Kelvin Knight does not have the same dynamic, skill set, I don't think, as Kenny Lawler has, and certainly not as refined, because Kenny Lawler is now, a veteran player after a couple of years here in the CFL. And Nick Dembski played really well. Rashid Bailey played really well. Darvin Adams did almost nothing. He caught 1 out of 8 passes thrown his way for just 10 yards. And that's a concern because they need Darvin Adams to be, a deep threat and a key player for Collaros. But hopefully Lawler opens that side up for Adams as well. And they should be in pretty good shape there. And they still have Naaman Roosevelt, who they haven't even tried to put into the lineup yet. I'm not sure exactly what the situation is there, but maybe he's their ace in the hole for the playoffs. I don't know. But honestly, I do think that Kenny Lawler and Zach Collaros have an excellent chemistry. They seem to really understand each other. And Collaros has been underthrowing some footballs lately. And Lawler has been the guy I've noticed who's done the best job of coming back to make those grabs, even if the ball is underthrown.
Yeah, I'm sort of with you as well. I mean, people were asking if there was any additional discipline from the Canadian Football League. There was not. Bombers did that suspension, and he'll be eligible to come back, and I think we should expect that going forward. Hey, just one more on the CFL. We spent so much time talking about the Bombers. The big question right now is, who's the number 2 team in the league? Who's next?
You know what? To me, it has to be the Toronto Argos. They're the only team that's beaten Winnipeg. I honestly think that they're the only right now. If it was going into the Grey Cup and the Bombers were playing the Argos, I honestly think that would be a concern for the Bombers because the Argos have played them well in every game last year and this year. And I do think that they're a team that seems to be a bit of a threat. They big comeback win against Hamilton. They look strong out of the East. And, the other team to me that's in that mix is probably the Calgary Stampeders. Obviously, the Saskatchewan Roughriders are still there, but the Calgary Stampeders look like they're coming on strong, having beaten Saskatchewan 2 games in a row. Bo Levi Mitchell looking better. That's a team that's sort of building. You can see that. It's like that steamroller coming up from below. And we'll see where they end up when we get to the playoffs and if they are a team that can truly push the Bombers in the West Division.
Ted Wyman is with us from the Winnipeg Sun here. Oh, sorry about that, Ted. Ted Wyman's with us from the Winnipeg Sun here. Ted, I have to quickly ask you about the latest on curling. You've done such a great job helping Manitoba curling fans follow our teams as we get ready to, the biggest event that happens every 4 years. That, of course, is the Olympic qualifying. Big performance by Mike McEwen's rink to get the spot that they thought they already had. Just give us a quick rundown of the Manitoba teams, where they're at right now as it pertains to trying to represent Canada at the Olympics.
Well, I wish I had the whole list of the players that are the teams that are playing in the pre-trials, but there are a number of Manitoba teams that are going to be involved there, and they're still going to have a chance to get into the full trials. That includes Jason Gunlickson, Sean Grassie. There's a few other teams on the men's side that are doing that. On the women's side, you've got Jennifer Jones, Carrie Anderson, Tracy Fleury. They're all locked in to the trials and are going to be big-time contenders, all 3 of them to advance to represent Canada. And on the men's side, Mike McEwen, that they're such a good team. They really are a really good team. They've been just short for a while now, and they're just not quite there with Team Jacobs and Team Gushu and Team Cooey and Team Botcher. But they're right there in the second tier, I think, along with Matt Dunstone's team out of Saskatchewan and teams that could come up and surprise. And I'll tell you, that's something that has happened many times at the Olympic trials, where teams that haven't been the best in the country in terms of winning Briers and Scotty's Tournaments of Heart have come through and been the team that won in the Olympic trials, or even at least took a run and got to the final. And Mike McEwen did make the final last time, lost on Last Rock. A really great draw by Kevin Cooey to break his heart. He's got a different team now, but that's a guy with a lot of determination and a team that really wants to, nothing more than to get there. And I certainly think they've got a chance, and there'll be a fun team for Manitoba to follow.
Are you going to be out in Saskatoon next month covering it all for the Sun?
You bet, for the whole Post Media chain, and I've been doing that for a few years. And I really enjoy that. It's a great spectrum of the entire country representation in curling that I get to do. And the trials is just a beast of its own. It's just an incredible thing to cover. The intensity of it all, the excitement, the amount of work that has gone into just getting there. Like, no sport has a qualifying process like Canada does for the Olympics. It's 4 years long, and then they have to go through extra events this year just to get to those trials, and then they got to go through a grueling round robin against the 8 other best teams in the country just to have a chance to get into the playoffs and then win more big games and maybe get to the Olympics. There's a reason why you can see those teams shed such tears of joy and excitement when they win something like that. It's as big as winning the Olympics itself, and it's really a special event every 4 years.
Well, I can't wait to talk to you more about that as we get closer to the end of November in Saskatoon. And it's always great having you on the program, Ted. Lots for us to chop up right now with everything that's happening with these Winnipeg teams. But of course, the focus tonight is going to be on the Honda Center and the Jets' first game of the season. And then, of course, they'll be back for the home opener next Thursday, I believe, against these same Anaheim Ducks. Sort of weird. Jets get Anaheim 3 times in the first 7 games of the season, Ted. And maybe that's a good thing, touch wood, because the Ducks don't have great prospects, shall we say, to be a top team this year. But we will see some exciting young players on Anaheim tonight. But I think all eyes are going to be on number 91, Cole Perfetti, in his NHL debut. What do you and the gang at the Sun have coming up, obviously, for tonight, going into a busy weekend with more Jets action? Of course, a big Bomber game on the road in Edmonton on Friday.
Oh, man, we've got everything covered, obviously. And, it is a late game tonight. So some early words of wisdom from Scott Billick before that one as well. And then Paul Friesen's actually going to cover the Blue Bombers on the road this weekend. I'm taken back. Actually wrote about curling today. And back on the beat next week with the Bombers. Did a little Jets coverage this week. Really, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed that you like to talk to me about all 3 of these sports, because it's one of the things I love about this business is being able to be involved in all of them.
Well, you know what? I'm with you. I mean, that's why I love these chats, whether we're on the air or off the air. But, curling is something that has a huge, huge place in the Manitoba sports scene. And there's a lot of people that haven't, but you know what? They get sucked in when the Briar's on or the Scotties are on. But this event coming up is different. It's on a whole nother level. You named it. It's 4 years of grinding to try to, take the greatest honor in Canadian curling, which is representing your country every 4 years. So the stakes are high. The teams are amazing, and a lot of them are from right here in Winnipeg and Manitoba. So I always love talking to you about it, Ted. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy all the action. I mean, this doesn't get much better, as you mentioned, for being a sports fan right now. It's stuff going on, and we'll do this again real soon here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
All right, buddy. Have a great day.
Great stuff. There he is, the Drip King himself, at Ted_Wyman on Twitter. You can check out Ted's work along with Freezer, Scott Billick, and the rest of the team over at the Winnipeg Sun in the sports section. All right, we do have some more things to get to as it pertains to tonight. We'll go through some of the lines, a little more from the morning skate. But first off, do want to thank Not AutoCorp for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk since day one. Trevor and his team have been supporting us. And they've been such a big part of Winnipeg. I was out there for the Milt Stiegel TV shoot last week, and you have to see what they have done with the facility there. The old Winnipeg Convention Center sign is up in the back. I mean, it is, and the art that they've done on the walls from the Car Lab, some of the most iconic sports photos in our city's history. It really is an amazing spot, but not quite as amazing as the vehicles they've got on the lot. If you're looking for a new car, why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Not team? And while you're there, check out the Winnipeg Car Lab, which is open now. Follow them on all socials at Winnipeg Car Lab for wraps, detailing, tinting, striping, rims, all of those things as well. It's all at Not AutoCorp, Waverly and McGillivray, or online at not.ca. Now, Friday afternoon, we will be doing another famous Winnipeg Sports Talk marble race. I got to give a shout out to Schickster, who won our first co-branded Winnipeg Sports Talk Canadian Club hoodie in last Friday's event. Schickster popped by yesterday to pick it up. Looked great in it. And by the way, Schickster loved the support, and he was looking good in one of the Winnipeg Sports Talk hats that we did with our friends at Royal Sports. Canadian Club, though, official sponsor, official whiskey of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and certainly the official spirit of your boys here at Winnipeg Sports Talk. You can find it around IG Field at any event, as well as at your local Manitoba Liquor Mart. And It is getting a little cooler right now, and I know it might not be blizzard weather, but this is the Slurpee capital of the world. And if we can drink Slurpees 12 months a year, we sure as heck can enjoy the great taste of a DQ Blizzard. And our friends Nick and Nikki have them cooking, along with amazing burgers, fries, chicken fingers, and so much more at DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. And if you do have an event coming up, a birthday party, a gathering, or just getting together with friends and want to be the hero, hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. They'll get you that DQ cake to your specifications, ready for you to pick up at any of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQs. So again, follow them on Instagram at DQ Manitoba for all of your cake needs as well, or just pop in and grab one on the way. All right, great stuff with Dave Pagnotta. Really appreciated Ted coming on. Love talking to Ted always, but it was really great to be able to get to the Jets, of course, the latest on the Bombers, and of course, even a little bit of curling right now with such an exciting month coming up. But our focus, of course, is back on the Winnipeg Jets tonight. We'll get to the Coolbet lines in a minute, but let's get Remis back out here. And Remo, I see Murat and the gang that are down in Anaheim right now have a few updates from the morning skate today. Didn't seem like there was a lot going on with line rushes as much, but all eyes on number 91, Cole Perfetti, who is set to make his NHL debut, and haven't got the confirmations that her parents are there yet, but I do think the Perfetti family will be very proud spectators tonight watching 91 get his first game in the show.
Yeah, I think that's the number one story. We're all waiting for that. As far as Evgeny Svechnikov, who signed, you mentioned it earlier, he couldn't travel with the team because he wasn't signed. So there's, 12 forwards and Mark Scheifele on the ice, 7 defensemen. So yeah, I think they're figuring Svechnikov will make it in time for the game. They always say the morning skate, I mean, take it or leave it, right? That's not really an essential. I think it's just like routine at this point. But so they were going to go, or they go 11 forwards, 7D. And there's Murat also saying no line combinations, but Ken did have them yesterday. I believe, is this Cole Perfetti's mom tweeting about it? I'm not, or family member, I'm not sure who Murat retweeted. And then I guess they're going through the post-game media right now. So
that's actually his sister.
Oh, his sister. Okay, I didn't.
And you know what? I'll plug our friend Murat's piece. If you are an Athletic subscriber, which I certainly suggest you do, he does amazing work. I mean, the site itself for sports fans is phenomenal, but Murat in particular does just some great reads on the Winnipeg Jets. He did a long read, which actually we'll get to. It also provided some incredible comedy in the comments, which I tweeted out earlier on. But his older sister was such a big part of his young hockey career, going with him to all these events, missing out on a lot of things that normal teenagers do with her brother. So it's not surprising that his sister says, "Good luck tonight, Cole Perfetti. I'm incredibly proud of you for achieving this goal. You've worked so hard for it." And thank you, Winnipeg WPG Murat, for writing this article that captures the kind of person that Cole is. That is the one thing that I came out of reading that. And you know, I don't like to be cynical because a lot of times we get sold things on players and everyone just focuses on all the great things and you don't really get to see any of the warts that do become apparent at some point later on. But I'll give the Jets so much credit. They certainly do seem to vet individuals well. And you also want to have a great player. And it seems like they've hit on both of these. And to be honest, Remo, I think a lot of the things that Cole did off the ice, the way he interacted with teammates, management at every level, especially last year playing all around that he did, I think that maybe put him in even a better position to realistically get a shot to crack the lineup. And as we've talked about, I'm not sure whether this is temporary because of the Scheifele suspension or whether we might be seeing a little bit more Perfetti over the course of the first few weeks of the season to see how things go. But it certainly seems like he's done everything right on and off the ice to earn his first game in the NHL tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he had a great season last year, and even since the moment he was drafted, I mean, you heard about how intelligent he was, you know, again, on and off the ice, done all the right things. He's earned this opportunity. And look, majority of the chats had the under for 25 games, but I think it's entirely possible that if he plays well, he can, make an impact and stick around. And I have the tweet, Huss, from the comment section. So here.
So late last night, I didn't want to tweet this too late, but I'm reading Murat's article and I get down to the end. And usually I don't spend a lot of time in comment sections because, well, frankly, there's far too many idiots in the majority of comment sections. But this piece that came in, came at the end, I had to tweet about it. So essentially, it's all about Cole, his run here, his family. It's a glowing piece on what really seems like a pretty special young man, both as a player and off the ice. So Mark S. goes in, and I'll read this out for folks that are listening on the podcast. The first comment is from Mark S. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's clear that character is a very important quality that this organization looks for in a player. The Jets have long been criticized for playing, quote, good in the room guys over better players, but I believe that was a conscious choice from a concerted effort to build a culture, which I think they've achieved. On-ice excellence is so fleeting, but it seems off-ice excellence is a little more within the organization's control. And once you have that, you've got a fertile ground to grow your players. That's the draft and develop ethos here, it seems. So that was from Mark S. Brendan L. then pops in and says, okay, Mark Scheifele. To which Mark S. says, hey, sorry to break it to you, Brendan Lemieux, but that now you know why we traded you. To which Brendan L. says, haha, well played. I laughed so hard at that, Remis. And again, I'm not sure whether these are actual, it's Mark Smith and Brendan Loudon or whatever, but the way that it came out and the way that it read was a little bit of magic in the comment section that you don't get very often.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing. The Athletic does have a good comment section because it's people who are paying to read the site and who want to get that kind of content. But yeah, that is pretty funny. I saw you tweeted it. I gave it a like. I thought it was pretty funny. But I mean, I think Perfetti, you know him for being a good person off ice. We talked about Josh Morrissey, who was a Scholastic player there. I think Adam Lowry was too. I think they got a couple. So it was definitely a quality that the Jets look for when they're drafting. And again, we're all excited to see what he can do. A couple storylines as we head into the season, but Perfetti playing with this one, Lowry and Harkins. Well, that's what it was with practicing yesterday.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we're expecting to see tonight in the game, if you pop by a little later on. Oh, and by the way, before we do it, it's great to see we've had an awesome turnout. Jet season is back, always bumps the numbers. If you are new here, well, first of all, if you're with us on YouTube, kindly do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button. Certainly helps us spread the channel. And at any point afterwards, if you want to go back and leave a comment, preferably positive, on any of the YouTube videos, that's a big help as well. But if you are new, we do this every day. We do it live on YouTube at 1 o'clock, finish up around 3 so we can get into everyone's podcast feeds on their way home shortly after 3 o'clock by 3:30. But hit that red subscribe button. It certainly helps us. And you'll know if you want to turn notifications on, you'll get a little thing on your phone when we're going live. But when you go back to YouTube, you'll have all the Winnipeg Sports Talk videos. It's a great way to support the channel, completely free. So yeah, hit that red subscribe button. And when you do pop on one of the videos, kindly hit that thumbs up. All right, Remo, we got to get to a couple things before we finish up the program. And we may as well get to the Coolbet odds because finally, after however many months, we are back at it with NHL action to get to. And, it's interesting. I was on OddsShark earlier, just looking at some comparative numbers across books, many of them not available to us. Seeing the Jets anywhere from minus 140 to minus 160 favorites at most spots. Coolbet's got a great line for the Winnipeg Jets. They're only minus 137 favorites. So if you do like Winnipeg, and I have a feeling many of the people listening to our program might want to get in on the Jets on game number 1 of the season, Coolbet's got a great number, minus 137, just about the best number I've seen anywhere for tonight's game. I would imagine that might actually get a little worse, closer to 145 or 150 as we get closer to the game tonight. So if you do want to bet it, you can do it at Coolbet. If you've never bet at Coolbet before, use the promo code WST. You'll get a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. But Remo, it all gets started tonight. Habs and Leafs. And it's going to be crazy. When you think about the playoff series that those two teams had, we're going to have no Carey Price, no Shea Weber, no Kotkaniemi, no Austin Matthews, potentially no Mitch Marner. I will say this, the broadcasters, for all the excitement about the start of the season, you've got some COVID absences, no Nate McKinnon tonight. Last night was no Malkin and Crosby. And tonight, some of the biggest stars of the last decade for both of these two clubs, not in the lineup tonight, but the Leafs still the big public team and a heavy favorite at -185.
Yeah, I was looking at the DraftKings for my line stacking, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? No McKinnon in Colorado, and as you said, no Matthews, possibly no Marner in Toronto. So I opted for the McDavid line in my lineups. But if I feel like an underdog, I'm kind of on Montreal. I mean, Toronto's missing some guys. They were never exactly a defensively sound team, Hustler. And what have they done to shore up that defense? Like anything? And what have they done at goalie? So I actually didn't mind Montreal. They got the newly signed Nick Suzuki with the new deal. Cole Caulfield is going to be, they're not holding him out for game one like they did in the playoffs, losing the first game. So if you want an underdog, I actually didn't mind Montreal, just based on the fact they're missing all those dudes.
Well, it'll be interesting. Other games tonight. There's two early ones. Leafs, Habs, Rangers, and Capitals. That's a tight one. Caps a very slight home favorite at -114. Rangers at -105. And then the late games tonight. There's three of them, all of them starting at 9 o'clock our time. Winnipeg -137 favorites. Ducks getting +117. The Avalanche just about a 2-1 favorite, -196. The Blackhawks +163. That was over 200 earlier today. People probably going over to the site though and realizing that Nate McKinnon is out on COVID protocol, Remis, and they won't have their number one player. It'll be Nazem Kadri in between Landeskog and Rantanen for this game tonight against the Hawks. Yeah,
that was interesting for me too. I'm kind of curious about Chicago this year, Huss.
Oh, me too.
I want to know, is this going to work? Is this going to work? I mean, they brought in Seth Jones, Tyler Johnson, Marc-Andre Fleury, got rid of Duncan Keith. Jonathan Taves is back. I know a lot of people in Winnipeg, especially, I want to see what he's able to do this season after taking last year off. So I think Chicago really intriguing. I did select Patrick Kane, who I think he's 31 now, but still one of the top scorers in the league. So I'm excited for him. And another, they got a young player too in the third line, Kirby Dach. What kind of impact can he make this year? And Alex DeBrincat as well. So they have a lot of top talent mechanic come together for Chicago. I still think they finish like outside of the playoffs in the Central. I guess if there's 5 teams, maybe they could get that 5th spot.
I think they'll be a borderline team. I mean, I think they'll be in on the mix. What's interesting, I mean, you mentioned hockey pools. I was in my hockey pool with the boys last night. There was like 12 of us or 13 of us, and there was 12 rounds. We're getting down. My team stunk. I didn't like my early picks, but late, it was coming down to the 12th round, and I'm kind of screwing around on daily face-off. And I realized that going into game 1 tonight, Tyler Johnson,
yes,
former Tampa Bay Lightning, is the number 1 center in between DeBrincat and Kane, and Tyler Johnson is the center in between Taves and Kane, along with DeBrincat and Seth Jones on their first power play unit. This is a guy that was really sort of an afterthought in Tampa, but it has been quite productive. By all accounts, he's going to get an opportunity to play with some of the top dogs in Chicago, and that could be a low-dollar baller, both in daily fantasy as well as a late pick in hockey pools that, certainly considering I picked him in the last round, I'm hoping makes us all look smart at the end. He's certainly in a great position heading into the season when it comes to scoring.
Yeah, I actually went to pick him up in my league, and someone did. I don't know if they drafted him or what, or they just picked him up. So I can't get him. Someone just picked him up yesterday. But I think when you're talking about fantasy, it's more about opportunity than skill when you're looking for this, and you want to get a guy who's going to be playing power play minutes, playing with skilled players, playing on a top line. And Tyler Johnson, didn't go great for him the last couple of years in Tampa, but I mean, if you're playing beside Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat and playing power play 1, a guy who has had success before, that is a guy I would look to take. I don't know what his salary is on DraftKings tonight. I kind of was looking more in the Colorado direction, but that's definitely someone to look forward to or look at.
No doubt. And of course, I mean, we can't talk about the Blackhawks without talking about the return of Jonathan Toews. And it looks like Toews is going to be on a number 2 line with Kubalik and Philip Kurashev. Obviously, that can change. I mean, that's a game 1 lineup, and all our hopes for Tyler Johnson in the top line. He could be on the 3rd line by the 2nd period today, so who knows? But bottom line is, certainly for Winnipeg natives that have watched Jonathan Toews' incredible career, was concerning that he was missed last year. Whatever he was going through, you sort of mentioned some of the things off the ice that kept him off the ice. The NHL is better with Jonathan Toews in it, and certainly the Blackhawks are in it. And Remis, part of the reason why I think, they made some interesting offseason additions. They got Seth Jones. You can debate how much he's making, what they gave up for him. They got Marc-Andre Fleury for nothing, which is a big, big boost in goal considering what they'd had for the last couple of years. But to get Jonathan Toews and Kirby Dach back in the middle, those are 2 legit top 9 centers, and I think you probably could say both of them top 6. Kirby Dach had a great rookie season, was out last year for injury. So as much as they did some splashy things in the offseason, the biggest additions to the Blackhawks lineup could very well be Toews and Dach in the middle.
Yeah, I agree with you. So as far as, Central is one team I didn't realize, Huss, who I think is actually going to be pretty good, who was at Dallas. I think, I'm kind of looking at the Central, and I'm like Minnesota, St. Louis, but I think we're kind of overlooking Dallas, who went to the Cup final. Tyler Seguin's back, but I did not realize, maybe because we didn't see them last year, how good Roope Hintz is.
Oh, Roope Hintz is a stud.
Yeah, I did not. He kind of goes under the radar. We only saw the Canadian teams last year, but this guy put up numbers last year. Jason Robertson as well. I don't know. Dallas could be solid. They got Heiskanen, Lindell, Ryan Suter, Klingberg. They got a solid squad here. This Dallas.
Yeah, they do. Braden Holtby and Hudobin in net. Goaltending, a big, big question for them right now. Although Jake Ottinger might be the guy that plays more than either of the guys that are listed right now as the top 2, is sort of the goaltender of the future. And yeah, I think the addition of Ryan Suter is great. Problem with Dallas, in my opinion, is, you can get more out of Roope Hintz, and Robertson can turn into a great player. But when they have so much money invested in Ben, in Tyler Seguin, Radulov, those guys, they need more from those players. And, it goes back to, the owner that called them out a couple of years ago. It's been up and down since they committed to these guys. So they did have that great playoff run a couple of years ago, but right now there's a lot of work to be done, and it's a very, very difficult division, a tough neighborhood in the NHL, the Central Division. So all of these games are going to be great. I'm as much as I love the Canadian division, and I did think that maybe they would try to have more Canadian games within teams, I can't wait to get back for the Nashville game and game number 2 of the season to see when Dallas comes here, and many of those teams that we Jets used to play a lot that we haven't seen for a while, to get back into the new Canada Life Arena or Canada Life Center, whatever it's called, and get back to some head-to-head divisional matchups in the Central Division. Last game tonight that we haven't touched on, Pacific Division battle, one anthem game, the Vancouver Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers. And listen, I think Edmonton certainly, with the additions they have up front with Zach Hyman, I think Warren Fogel's going to be a great addition. Their top end of the forward group is as good as there is in the National Hockey League. Still very much up in the air as to what their defense is, especially after losing Adam Larson. What are they going to get from Duncan Keith? And this is a great thing to be talking about, we mention, what's going to happen with the backup goaltender here in Winnipeg, because you got Connor Hellebuck going 65 plus in the net. With all of that talent, I still have no trust whatsoever in the tandem of Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. And, we're going to see how much Connor McDavid and Draisaitl and those guys are going to need to score to win games this year, because credit to Mike Smith for grabbing that number 1 job last season and I think taking advantage of circumstances and getting a 2-year deal. But I'm far from convinced that he's going to be a guy that can play 50, 55, 60 games and deliver legit, solid number 1 level goaltending for the Edmonton Oilers. And that's going to be something I think we'll be following as soon as the puck drops tonight, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Edmonton, top end, best in the league with McDavid and Draisaitl. And I know your friend Dusty is getting on Puljujarvi coming up. But the defense, I think a lot of question marks there. Goaltending as well. I mean, my fantasy draft the other day, Mike Smith went for pretty cheap, and I couldn't pull the trigger on him. I know he looked great in the playoffs against the Jets, but I'm not sold. And their backup, but Koskinen, questionable as well. So what's going on?
I got to give a shout out to Frosty Winnipeg, who's just put, I believe Nashville will raise a first game of the season banner tomorrow. The banner jokes when it comes to the Preds never get old. Waiters, wades in. That should be very emotional, the first game of the season. Although, in all jokes aside, though, it is going to be, I think, some emotional for some people to get back. I mean, I think about my return to the Bombers. I mean, the opening game when they raised the Grey Cup banner, and that really was the biggest event at its time in Canada. And obviously, we were sort of the first people to go through the proof of vaccination and all that, which went very smoothly. But it was just being able to get back into a facility with friends, fans, people that we hadn't seen in months, sometimes, over a year. It was sort of like that for the preseason, but it was still the preseason. It was almost like a dress rehearsal. I got to tell you, Remo, I think the atmosphere for the Winnipeg Jets, their fans next Thursday when the team opens up the home portion of the schedule after being out of the building, fans that for so long, will be one of the more memorable games we've had in the 10 plus years now. Winnipeg Jets hockey back as part of 2.0.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, we already had the preseason games, but you could tell, when we were there, the atmosphere, people were excited, but it wasn't like, you knew it wasn't regular season hockey. So I think the first regular season game might be like that game, 10 years ago. There's nothing like that, but still very exciting that the NHL is back for regular season games with fans in the arena here in Winnipeg. So what have we got, like a week? Is it next Thursday? Is that the game?
Yeah.
21st, I believe.
A week tomorrow.
So the countdown is on. I'm looking forward, and we'll get to see the Ducks again. Do you want to take a look at this Ducks lineup? Yeah. If you forgot who was on it, here, let's
fire it up. Well, there's a number of new players, and I mean, you looking right up at the front. Ryan Getzlaf is back, and for the first time in forever, Ryan Getzlaf is not the number one center for the Anaheim Ducks. And you want to talk about a passing of the baton or a changing of the guard? I think we're going to see it right in front of our eyes tonight when Trevor Zegras goes out and takes the first face-off in all likelihood for the Ducks. Zegras is in the center position. He, of course, had that amazing World Juniors last year for Team USA, played in the American Hockey League, and is now ready to go as a legit top six forward in the NHL with very, very high hopes. One of the favorites to win the Calder Trophy. He's with Adam Henrique and Ricard Raquel on that top line. And then you've got Ryan Getzlaf in between Maxime Comtois and Troy Terry. Isaac Lundestrom, Jacob Silfverberg. Silfverberg has been a regular for the Ducks for a number of years. But here's interesting, remote. Mason McTavish, the third overall pick in the draft from this year, looks like he's made the club. He's going to be 18 years and I think 256 days I was looking at. Wasn't too sure as to how many of the class of 2021 would get an opportunity to crack a lineup, but it certainly seems like he will make his NHL debut tonight. Benoit Olivier-Groux, Max Jones, and Derek Grant on the fourth line. And then a defense pairing. This is interesting. Hampus Lindholm, who I'm a big fan of, he will be the rock for the Ducks on the blue line. But he's going to be playing, speaking of Calder Trophy candidates, with former World Junior star for Canada, Jamie Drysdale. So Zegras and Drysdale, the two real key rookies, and we'll see if Mason McTavish can stick around with the club and make it three. Cam Fowler and Josh Manson, and then Kevin Shattenkirk still cashing a paycheck along with Greg Pateryn. But really, Remo, when we go into this game tonight, when we're talking about the Ducks, I mean, really, you have to start with John Gibson in net, one of the top goaltenders who's seen as much rubber as anyone over the last few years. But the story for Anaheim going into this season is about the changing of the guard. It's about Zegras, it's about Drysdale and Mason McTavish in this opening day lineup, and see how far they can come this year, because not a lot of people expecting them to be a playoff team, but I do think that part of the reason why big deals weren't made is they didn't want to move off those young players who they really feel are going to be pillars of their team going into the future.
Yeah, it seems like this Ducks rebuild's been taking a while, but I think Drysdale's a player you can get excited about. Trevor Zegras. I mean, these are the players in your fantasy draft. You're taking a stab at the end. So I know they've had success in San Diego, and they're trying to transfer some of that to the NHL. I'm kind of surprised that Getzlaf's like stuck around, but like, why wouldn't you want to stick around and live at the beach and play hockey in Anaheim? I mean, he's done everything there is to do. Maybe he likes being the older guy. You have loyalty to the organization. We'll see how it looks tonight with Getzlaf and the kids. I mean,
Getzlaf, he made his money. He won the cup. There'd be a lot of teams that I think, and who knows, depending on what happened. I don't see, but I think he just signed a 1-year deal, if I'm not mistaken, to come back. So, you look at what the situation is a little later on in and around the deadline, and if there's a taker for Ryan Getzlaf and it makes sense for the Ducks to do it and he's in on it, I mean, I could see him doing a playoff run with another team. But he has been the heart and soul of the Anaheim Ducks for the better part of 10 years right now. And I think they did well on themselves to get him back into the lineup, especially as they're looking at this somewhat changing of the guard from the Perry Getzlaf, dynasty days, if you will. Not that it really was a dynasty, but they were one of the top teams for a number of years and got to the top of the mountain. They're far, far away from that as we embark on the 2021 season going into tonight.
Yeah, so I'm trying to keep up with the chat here, and I was like, he's got a contract. One other player, you talk about Getzlaf, who's older, doesn't have a contract, Eric Stahl, and he was traded to Montreal. I wonder what happens with him, but we are staying on the Ducks. I was looking at a couple of props for tonight's game. I'm more of a prop fantasy guy than what is it? Just straight up betting on winners.
Someone that can actually pick a game correctly.
Yeah, exactly. So, man, what about Dubois over 1.5 shots on goal? I thought that one was interesting for the Jets. But here's one. If you want this one, Huss, you think Cole Perfetti can score his first goal of his career tonight? Plus 380. So, I mean, if you want to do that for fun, I think it's available.
Might have to throw a 10 on that. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. May as well do the will score, will not score numbers.
Yeah.
So Kyle Connor plus 130, Maxime Comtois and Nikolai Ehlers plus 220, Wheeler plus 250, Kopp, Stastny, Adam Henrique, Ricard Raquel 3-1, Trevor Zegras plus 330, Dubois plus 350. And Cole Perfetti, as you mentioned, plus 380. There's Adam Lowry at 4-1, who might benefit from maybe gets a setup from Cole Perfetti. All those numbers are there. And what about player points? Kyle Connor minus 182, Ehlers minus 147. That might be the safest money on the board, I have a feeling. And what's interesting is Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, his numbers are quite low, and I get people are probably on a wait and see from Dubois considering the season that he had last year. I think I'm going to be in on Dubois early on the season, Remis, because playing with Nikolai Ehlers, both on their line and the power play, you'd think that there will be some opportunities. And I think this is exactly what the Winnipeg Jets need to get Pierre-Luc Dubois back rolling, what they thought they were getting when they traded him for Patrick Laine and Jack Roslovic. So I'm maybe this is the optimistic side of me, but certainly hoping for a great start for Pierre-Luc Dubois. He couldn't be paired with a better player if you wanted to get off to a hard start than Nikolai Ehlers, especially with the top line presumably taking up some of the tougher matchups on the road.
I actually agree with you. On the road, I usually like to go with line 2 on DraftKings. I know Dubois was 4,200 playing with Ehlers, so I liked him on DraftKings, and I would say plus 110 for Dubois to score. I mean, playing with the Ehlers, getting power play time, favorable opponent. I think the team total I saw for the Jets was 3 tonight. So yeah, Dubois plus 110. I think it gives you exposure. If you think Ehlers is going to score, well, who's going to get points? Or you think Ehlers is going to get a point? Who's going to score the goal? And it would be his line mates Dubois and Kopp. So I think Dubois plus 10 is decent val. I mean, Andrew Kopp is more favored to get a point than Dubois, which, according to our chat, would make no sense because Rob Mahoney says Kopp is not going to score because he can't hit the net. So
he did have 4 goals in a game last year, Rob.
I didn't get 15 goals on the year, but can't hit the net. It can't hit the net. Huss. And we did get into Cop. We did talk a lot about Cop yesterday. We did have a nice tweet thread in my mentions from Maddie Lang, who always listens.
Yes, Matt. That was well thought out. And if you missed the Cop conversation yesterday, definitely get back to yesterday's program. We had who were we talking about?
Hamill. Well, you and I talked about it.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying I didn't disagree. Here, I'll read his comments because we got into it yesterday, and he said, "Here's my issue with Cop. He's a pretty good player who's pretty valuable to the team. The problem is that if you're going to line up a Stanley Cup winning roster, he's a very third liner." Oh, I got a visitor here. Should I bring him on?
Oh, yeah. Is Evan coming in to make some picks?
Yeah, he's coming to make picks. Hi,
Look
Evan.
at this. The Winnipeg Sports Talk debut of the next one. Big Ev. No daycare today, huh, bud?
No, he wasn't feeling well, so he just sneezed all over my my microphone. Evan, are the Jets going to win today? He likes playing with the mouse. This is bring your kid to work day.
Bring your kid to work
Evan,
day.
do you want to say hi to everyone? Can you wave hi?
Yeah, give a wave, Evan. Hi there.
I don't want to interrupt the whole show talking about Andrew Kopp. But here, I'll bring it back. Oh, he's typing on the keyboard. We're gonna start going offline here. Evan, time to go. Thanks for stopping in.
The WST audio gremlin has a mole inside the TSN studio.
Want to wave goodbye, everyone? He says bye.
Bye, Ev.
Bye. Go back with mommy.
Everyone's loving Evan's appearance on the program. I still think that we may need to get Evan to do maybe some NFL picks or something like that. We'll take the colors and you pick them, and we'll do a ticket every week on that. But it's looking good. We need to get. I'm going to get Evan. We probably has some Jet stuff already. Next time, maybe a game day visit. We'll get a little jersey on him or something like that. Speaking of which, I want to give a shout out to Owen. I know this was far earlier on the program today, but Owen fired up about Cole Perfetti's debut, said he just got picked up a custom done blue Heritage Perfetti jersey over at Royal Sports. Nowhere better to get those done than Royal. Incredible selection, great service. So if you want a Perfetti or a Nate Schmidt or a Brendan Dillon or a new Nikolai Ehlers, they're all there over at Royal Sports over at 750 Pembina Highway. That's right, Nicole J. Kids and dogs, always a hit. You can dominate the internet, you can dominate Instagram with kids and dogs, and we are doing that. That was great to see Evan here. He's fired up for the game. Will he make it? Will he make it up past 9:00 for puck drop tonight, Reem?
No. He goes to bed at he goes to bed at 7, and I want to keep it that way as long as possible so I can actually watch the game. If he was up, I don't think I'd get to watch it.
Sandy and G, can Evan kick a football at Winnipeg Sports Talk? Is that where we're at right now? We're literally going everywhere for a replacement for Ali Murdana and the Bombers kicking roads. We might be, in a little while, we might be able to get that done. Anyways, that was a lot of fun. If you're wondering what we're talking about on the podcast, we did have a little cameo from little Remis Jr. popping in for what I believe might be the first or second time on the program. So anyways, that was awesome. I know a lot of people are wondering about this John Gruden situation and wanted us to get into it. It was all the excitement about the Jets and stuff. I'm not going to spend too much time on it today. Obviously, he was gone. I mean, the minute all that stuff started coming out, he was done and should be. What is interesting about this is how this was coming out, who is leaking it, why were they going specifically for John Gruden? Because as far as we know, in the thousands and thousands and thousands of emails, these are the only ones that have been leaked. Lee Hacksaw Hamilton is going to join us on Friday afternoon. We'll have tons of Bomber and Jets talk for about the first hour and a half of the program. But for you NFL wonks like myself, we will do a big NFL segment on Friday's program with Hacksaw. We'll get his thoughts and the latest on the John Gruden situation, as well as all the news from the league heading into the weekend. And I'm sure we'll talk about the Thursday Nighter a little bit tomorrow, Reem, but tell you what, the wait is over. I'm so fired up. We've been talking about it for months. We felt the excitement from Winnipeg fans here on the program. Now it's time to see what Paul Maurice's squad is up for when they drop the puck against the Anaheim Ducks tonight. And it'll be interesting to see. I think Kevin Cheveldayoff's done a great job. Ted Wyman mentioned a lot of pressure on Paul Maurice to get the most out of this roster, as well as a number of players given, new opportunities this year. But for Cole Perfetti, it's his first ever opportunity. And he, in a lot of ways, will be the story of the game tonight. And then, of course, for game 2, the Jets get a bit of a nice addition to the lineup in terms of their number one center, 55 Mark Scheifele, who's going to be in the press box tonight.
Yeah, last night was fun. I mean, it was the kickoff of the season. We saw the new fancy broadcast for ESPN and TNT in the U.S. But tonight, I mean, it's real Jets hockey. I'm going to be watching. It's a late one, 9 o'clock. The best part is, Hustler, that I can actually invite people over and have a gathering in my household. I mean, I can have a gathering in my house to watch this game. Unlike when in the playoffs, when I think I was watching solo or whenever it was during the season. So yes, another great part of having hockey back. Reason to get together and watch the games with other people. So it's gonna be great.
Hey, look at this. I'm going to give a little shout out to Last One Left because he's in with Go, or he or she is in with Go Ducks Go, and you guys are going down tonight. It has been months since we've had fans of visiting teams coming into WST and shit-talking Jet fans, and I'm here for it. But guess what? The Jets are going to be here for it tonight, too. It should be great, and everyone's welcome here. Just keep it fun. Keep it polite if you can, but certainly rep your teams if you want. And Last One Left, we had many of the Habs fans stick around on a regular basis after the playoffs last year. So if you want to talk hockey, obviously with a bit of a Winnipeg slant, we're here every day. I guess 11 o'clock on the West Coast, 1 o'clock Central Time here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Remo, you got anything else before we get ready for this game?
I have a smile on my face being chirped by fans of the opposing team.
Yes, me too.
We haven't had that since the Habs, because the Jets haven't played. And we can have our opposing fan power poll, but like Habs fans easily the worst. And there's it's like the Bombers in the CFL power rankings and everyone else. Like the Habs during the playoffs, I've never seen anything like it. The hatred for Mark Scheifele was something else. That I'll never forget that day after the day after he laid the hit on Evans and we did the show. So we had one Ducks fan here saying Jets suck and giving us the thumbs down.
Shout out to Last One Left. Yeah. The test is whether they come back. And that's why I always think when we think about the Habs fans, I mean, there was the 20,000 that were in going crazy the day after the Scheifele suspension. That was an all-time day on Winnipeg Sports Talk. But remember Samuel? Yes. Samuel, the Habs fan, he was in literally every day for the next couple months. I'm not sure if Sam's around today, but anyways, always welcome. It's a lot of fun. We've got a great chat here live on the YouTube. So just, play nice with everybody. Have fun. Rep your team. Do what you want to do. Just don't be an asshole. You're getting thrown over the top rope by one CTO, Michael Remis. All right, everyone. Cannot wait for this game tonight. It's been a great show. Thanks to Dave Pagnotta for joining us. Thanks to Ted Wyman. Thanks to Michael Remis. And, of course, little Evan for his cameo on the program at the end. And a huge thanks to all of our sponsors. Culligan Water, don't forget that special for the $9.99 home equipment for 3 months goes up until Friday. You can give them a call over at 694-5180. Our friends over at Manitoba Battery getting you powered up for the winter. ManitobaBattery.com. Royal Sports, you can be like Owen, you need a Perfetti jersey, pop on over to Royal. They'll get you set up for tonight's game and the upcoming season. Our friends at Princess Auto, and thanks again to Ted Wyman for coming on and even getting in a little curling talk on his visit after we got to the Jets and Bombers. Princess Auto, of course, great sponsors of curling here in Manitoba and across the country. It's the cold, great taste of the 1919 and Little Brown Jug. Boston Pizza, great spot to go for the game tonight. Our friends at Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. The great taste of Canadian Club, Bombers, and Winnipeg Sports Talk official whiskey. And, of course, Nick and Nikki and the Nick and Nikki DQ group with DQs at Northgate, Niverville, Polo Park, and St. Anne's. And Coolbet's open. Still got a little bit of time to get those picks in and bets in before the game tonight. Find it all over at coolbet.com. And if you haven't played there before, you can always use the promo code WST for a 100% deposit. And we got a great crowd today, everyone. Would love to get up to 200 likes. We're 11 away right now, almost 300 people still in the chat. So if you haven't already, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, hit that red button and join us daily on YouTube at 1 o'clock here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And shout out to all the podcast listeners. Oh, by the way, check our Instagram feed at Sports Talk WPG. I wanted to do something so the podcast people can get into. We'll put together a little prize. We need to know who will score the first goal of the Jets season tonight. So go to our Instagram. We'll put that up shortly. And for all whoever is correct, just guess once per account. We'll do a little draw if there's a number of people that have guessed the same player, and I'll put together a little care package. Maybe get one of those Winnipeg Sports Talk t-shirts with Canadian Club, a few other goodies, and we'll announce the winner tomorrow on the program. So we'll get the pods up and then get a post up. So head on over, if you're not following already, at Sports Talk WPG on all the socials. But we'll do this on Instagram today. First goal scorer of the year, and we'll announce a prize winner tomorrow on the program. Folks, thanks again for being with us. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll talk to you tomorrow to break it all down on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily, live on YouTube at 1 and just after 3 in your podcast feed. Have a great night.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.